As a political commentator, are there any stories that have stuck in your mind which relate to ethnic minorities in Belfast, Northern Ireland?
Yes, there's a few. I mean, I'm thinking more in terms of reportage rather than commentary. I worked for some time on a religious affairs program called Sunday Sequence, and in Sunday Sequence, I was always trying to bring an element of comparative religion into discussions, because the focus in Northern Ireland is always going to be on the Catholic-Protestant division. And I was always saying, it can be more interesting than that, and it can also be that looking at other religious traditions can throw some light on how we understand our own. So we would, for instance, cover Ramadan and Eid, and events like that. And so I was not a regular visitor, but an occasional visitor at the mosque in Wellington Park. Also, I have an interest of my own in Hinduism. I lived for a time in India, and so I was interested in connections with the Indian community in Northern Ireland, and currently I have a good connection with them through a group called Image Nation NI. So there were also times when it was difficult, when accent would be difficult. I mean, I remember a very embarrassing occasion when Amnesty International asked me to their office to interview two Zimbabwean women who had a story to tell about oppression in Zimbabwe, about torture and imprisonment and abuse, and we couldn't use it because the accents were simply unintelligible to the Northern Ireland ear. I was sitting talking to people and not understanding what they were saying. And that was an embarrassment for me and a difficulty, and yet it was a practical problem in terms of radio broadcasting, that there isn't anything you can do about this. Yeah. On television you could put subtitles or something Absolutely. To assist the viewer. So yes, there were times when it was difficult. There were times when people around you in broadcasting would say, this isn't very interesting because, we are more interested in the local story. How has this got anything to do with what we're doing, And I suppose even I would have times have thought, the focus that I want in my own interest and is to deal with the challenge of Northern Ireland and cross-community understanding in Northern Ireland, and in some ways it seems irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And yet there were other times when the arrival of migrants, of incomers, became part of the story and became one of the major concerns within the story. For instance, just the very fact that we were going through a period of secularization in Ireland with the decline of the churches, and then you were getting an injection into the churches from Filipino Catholics, from Polish Catholics, and so on. So that became part of the story of social and cultural evolution within Northern Ireland itself. Times when there were big stories. I mean, one of the big recent stories was the burning of the what is it called, the place in Donegal Pass, the
Muslim Community Centre.
The Muslim Community, yeah. But there's another name for it, isn't there?
Yes.
But there, I mean, I've been looking recently at the discussion on how we create a united Ireland, or whether we will create a united Ireland, and there have been efforts on the part of Ireland's Future, an organisation which is creating debate. There's been efforts by them to bring in minority ethnic groups into the discussion. And that has turned out to be quite interesting, because what you find on the one hand is you will find voices from minority ethnic groups saying, look, you people can't even get on with other white Christians who live 100 miles up the road. How do you expect us to trust that you can get on with us? And yet on the other hand, you have some Muslim voices saying, look, we have seen the oppression of Muslims in Northern Ireland, the burning of their cultural centre in Donegal Pass. Therefore, we need a united Ireland to protect our Muslim brothers and sisters in Northern Ireland, because they are subjected to abuse and oppression there. So you're getting a diversity of opinion even within the minority ethnic groups in Ireland about whether there should be a united Ireland or not. And you're getting an effort to incorporate them into the discussion on whether there should be a united Ireland or not.
Looking to the future, what influence do you think the others, i.e. not aligned us and them, paradigm will have on the future of Northern Ireland? There is a view that their voices will be critical in a potential border poll.
I think let's look first of all at the Good Friday Agreement and the structure of politics in Northern Ireland for now, which is based on the idea that you need to bring two communities, just two, the nationalist and unionist communities, into cooperation, into power sharing in government. That is a structure based on the historic division that was here, you know, and that structure excludes people who do not identify as nationalist or unionist from the prospect of holding the most senior positions in government. Now that's discrimination against migrants, you know. I mean, and it's kind of ironic that we started out on this journey towards the Good Friday Agreement by accusing the state of discrimination against Catholics. And we're saying you need to have structures which incorporate Catholics, nationalists into government and protect them against discrimination and abuse. And yet the very system we have devised to solve that problem creates a potential other problem. So, I mean, I am interested in what you would think as a Polish person who might be interested in the politics of Northern Ireland, and how you would see yourself positioned within this, and how you anticipate a future in which you will discover, and your confreres, your country people, and other migrant groups will discover that they're disadvantaged within the political system. That that to have authority and power within that system, they will have to declare themselves nationalist or unionist. You know.
And some might not be very ready to do that.
And why would they?
Exactly.
You know, why should we have that expectation of them? Then we anticipate a border poll, and I think there will be a border poll. You know, it may not be for another 10 years, maybe even 15 years, but there will be a referendum on a united Ireland. And as that time approaches, and we're already seeing this in the Ireland's future debates, there will be an approach to the minority ethnic groups to say, you know, you must take a position on this. You must side with us on this, because, you know, this is for you as well, you know. And, you know, I think already we're seeing some hesitation on the part of minority ethnic groups saying, you know, well, is this really for us? This is, you know, for you to sort out. And then again, there's a naive assumption in that minority ethnic groups are all going to be homogenous, that they will all pull together and take a unified stand on whether to be part of the United Kingdom or part of the United Ireland. And there's no reason to suppose that they will do, you know. We saw in an Ireland's future debate in Cork last September, a Muslim man with a Scottish background protesting that, that Ireland does not accept Muslim people as Irish, that it is continually othering the outsider as never really fully Irish. And it overthrew the whole parameters of the debate, because there were other people on the panel who then joined in. There was a Somali woman who says he's absolutely right, you know. And there was even a Northern Protestant woman who said, well, I'm married to a Malaysian man and we have a mixed race daughter, and she's being told she's not Irish. So the whole tenor of the discussion about a future united Ireland changed over to a discussion about how well we assimilate not just each other, each other white Christians on the island, but how well we assimilate the Somali, how will we assimilate the Pakistani, how we even assimilate the mixed race children of our own people, you know. So this has the potential to be quite interesting, you know.
Absolutely. Do you think that after 100 years, Northern Ireland has established its own unique identity, even in the scenario of United Ireland?
I think we are evolving an identity. I think we're doing quite well at that in some ways, you know. I think the urgency of the debate about a united Ireland is untimely. I mean, it's timely in the sense it's inevitable because you're getting the demographic shift that makes it feasible. But I think, you know, at a time when things are balancing out. For instance, I am Irish from a Catholic background, grew up in Northern Ireland, always regarded myself as Irish. Now, it becomes more important for me to identify with the whole island of Ireland when my sense of being Irish is being criticised or abused, right? That's what makes me want a united Ireland. You know, you're telling me I'm not Irish, I will react against that. But now I'm living in a Northern Ireland which is much, much more genial towards Irishness, in which Irishness is well accepted, in which there's a balance of population between British and Irish, and there is no institutional discrimination against Irishness in Northern Ireland. So my incentive to unite Ireland for my own protection has gone. It's unnecessary. I don't need that protection. I don't need, you know, now Brexit changes the discussion again, but leaving Brexit aside for the moment, in terms of just the balance of populations in Northern Ireland and the balance of rights in Northern Ireland and the balance of cultures in Northern Ireland, I'm fine, I'm okay. I don't need to wrap the tricolour around me, and I don't need to confront the British or the Protestant or the Unionist and say, you're a problem for me. You know, it's easier for us to be neighbours now, right? So that makes it a bad time to be bringing in this big discussion about a united Ireland, you know. It would be better if we had a decade or two to settle into that balance and that comfort and to find a way of you know, to enjoy being more at ease with each other and to see what we are within that. And within that, to bring in migrants and people from other countries and cultures and to accept that we're enriched by that. There was a very interesting project a few years ago by a woman called Emily Didakis, whom you may know, but she, you know, the project was called Why Belfast, and she basically went round all kinds of migrants in Northern Ireland, outsiders, people from Canada, America, Philippines, India, African countries, and just says, why do you like Belfast? Because they all liked Belfast, you know? You know, and for us that's really quite interesting, you know, because there was other journalism going on at the time describing Belfast as the race hate capital of Europe, you know, and there is racial violence, there has been racial violence, but still in all, on balance, you stop a person on the street who looks like they're not from here originally, and you say, what do you like about this place? And they speak positively about it. So that is indicative of an identity forming which is inclusive, which is warm, which manages its tensions, and which you know, is capable of defining a space as having an identity that is good and rich, complex, and welcoming. And I would not want to spoil that project. And I would not want to disrupt that project. And I do think one of the things that will disrupt that project is if we now start turning to our Indian neighbours, our African neighbours, our Polish neighbours, our Filipino neighbours and Pakistani neighbours and saying it's time for you to make up your mind on a united Ireland. We should not be putting that on them at all, you know, and yet we will. Then you get to Brexit, and Brexit does make things different. Brexit creates a new incentive for a united Ireland. The past incentive for a united Ireland was an understanding that the dividing of Ireland, the partition, was an injustice that left a minority trapped inside Northern Ireland to be abused and discriminated against. That argument I regard as invalid now, right? But there's a new argument, and the new argument is we can get back into the European Union. You know, we can, you know, and that wouldn't be so urgent if England wasn't such an awful country at the moment, you know. I mean, the potential in England is that you lose Scotland, you've got England, it's going to be perpetually right-wing, it's going to be perpetually Tory, it's going to be governed by old Etonian prats like Boris Johnson and his cronies, you know? And do you really feel that you will have any kind of warm ear for Northern Ireland among those people? Do you really think you'll have consideration for our problems from people like that? No, you're much more likely to get understanding and empathy and support from the wider European family of nations. That changes the nature of nationalism. That is not nationalism, that is internationalism, you know, and that's interesting, that's quite good. But it would be better if they just forgot about Brexit.
Yeah.
You know, it has thrown a problem into the whole mix. You know?
People who come to Northern Ireland from various places in the world, including conflicted areas where there are still wars, often say that it puzzles them that with existing two contradictory historical narratives, there seems to be an air of mutual respect among enemies here.
Yeah.
How was that achieved? And
Yeah.
do you think that it is valid?
It is interesting, you know, people say one of the awful things about Northern Ireland is that local people can tell immediately if someone else is a Protestant or a Catholic, right? Right. So, and that looks worrying. That looks like sectarianism. That looks like bigotry, you know. But there's another way of looking at it, and that is that, you know, we put the other at ease by letting the other know whether we're Protestant or Catholic. That actually signaling that you're a Protestant or a Catholic can be a hostile thing, but it can also be the opposite. It can also be a gesture, you know, of you know, just so you know, this is who I am. You know, don't trip up. You know, in the 1990s, during after the first ceasefire, the beginning of the peace process, I was asked to go to the police to talk to policing groups, trainee police, basically about my community background and the politics of Northern Ireland. And I would find myself in a big room, in a bar, in a police training college with a member of Sinn Féin, a loyalist paramilitary, maybe a Catholic priest, maybe a Presbyterian minister, and all talking about our backgrounds and our experiences. And the thing that struck me most forcibly there was not hostility, but curiosity, you know? Curiosity. People in Northern Ireland, you know, having grown apart separately as Catholic and Protestant, don't always bring hostility to each other, you know? They bring curiosity to each other, you know? And that's, you know, that's good. That's
human.
It's human. It's human. And it's allowable, you know? I mean, in some ways, we are curtailing curiosity because you know, if somebody says to, you know, to a migrant, where are you from? It can be seen as an aggressive question, you know. If I meet an Indian man and I'm talking to him and I say to him, what part of India are you from? And he says, well, Ardoin. You know, that's, you know, that is right. I'm rightly corrected for making assumptions about the outsider or the neighbor. But still in all, you know, that same kind of curiosity, you know, when people came to me and they said things like, but the Catholic Church tells you how to vote. And I say, well, no, they don't actually. You know, but I welcome the opportunity to correct them.
Okay.
You know, as being of more value than the opportunity to scoff at them for being stupid, you know.
Okay.
I mean, I was talking to a Protestant friend recently and he said, when you are at a funeral, when you're at a Catholic funeral, you throw money into the grave for the priest. And I said, no, I don't. He says, but I've seen it, you know. It's common knowledge that at a Catholic funeral, the Catholics throw money into the grave for the priest to collect. I said, it's simply not true. I've never seen this. You know, what you've maybe seen is somebody pick up a piece of soil and put it onto the coffin. That's or throw flowers on. That's very common. But they don't. You know. But you give money to the priest. Well, of course you give money to the priest. Everybody, you know, he's doing a job of work, isn't he? You give him money. But you can respond to the ignorance of the other with shock and horror and affront, or you can respond to it as an opportunity to correct them in a civil way.
Deconstructing the myths.
Yeah, deconstructing the myths. You know, it's a far more generous response. You know, and so I think I I think probably we're past that in Northern Ireland, really. I don't think there are many Protestants who really believe that we throw money into the grave for the priest. But still in all, you know, this was my experience among the police trainees, and it wasn't a police trainee who said it. It was my experience among them that they were curious, and that curiosity was, for me, a more interesting expression of their position than any kind of animosity. Now, it includes suspicion, but you can deal with it if they bring it to you. You can't deal with it to you you can't deal with it if they just keep it among themselves, yes. You know, if it isn't spoken. Where am I? Sorry, what was the last question again? Just to try to say we
about I asked how was it achieved that people who come from different countries, they see these very contradicting narratives, and people who apparently hate each other, and they see that in fact they not only tolerate, this is how we see you, that you tolerate each other, you form government each other, you go to pubs together, you actually like each other, however you don't think that you like each other. But our perspective is very different, so how is it achieved?
Well, I think there are very, very few people who actually hate each other. If you look at Belfast, you will see peace walls dividing communities from each other, separating Catholic from Protestant. And you will assume from that everybody on each side, these people on different sides of this wall, fear and hate each other. And that's why you need a wall to keep them apart. Actually, the only reason you need a wall is because in that street or in that road with 100,000 people, there's maybe 10 people who would attack across here. And similarly that's why you need it, not because everybody hates everybody else. But there is another thing going on, and that is that we have abuse words for each other, right? Like prod and taig, right? Abuse words. And you will hear people using these words almost affectionately. I mean, it's a strange thing, you know. I have heard Catholics say, you know, oh, don't worry about him, he's a good prod, you know, or you know, or don't worry about him, you know.
I heard that as well.
Yeah.
She's a good taig.
She's a good taig, you know, and you wonder what is really going on there, you know, because some people will say that is proof of sectarianism. That is proof of them making a distinction, you know. But actually, it's friendly, you know. You know, it's complex because you wouldn't need that identification of the other as prod or taig if there wasn't some reason to suppose the possibility of difficulty arising in this relationship. So you are acknowledging that. But you're maybe moving in quickly to end that complication and to remove it, rather than enhancing it. You know, so there is civility in that. You know, and it's you know, it's like what I was saying. The way that people will signal. You know, we talk about telling. This is what the anthropologists call it, telling. You can tell a Catholic because by what school he goes to, or his children go to, or he went to, or in my case by the name. It's too easy in my case. The name is so obvious. But my name might be John Wilson, and you wouldn't know whether I was a Protestant or a Catholic or not. But when you meet John Wilson, you know, he might let you know very quickly that he's a Catholic or a Protestant, right? And you're thinking, is he letting me know by this little hint, this signal, this telling, this little symbolic gesture? Is he doing that to threaten me or to include me? Because it can be both. And I think it's very often to include. You know, it's very often to say, look, you know, I'm a taig, but don't worry about it.
All right.
You know, or I'm a prod, but don't worry about it. You know, and it's true that could only happen in a divided society. And division is bad, but still in all, it's a device for negotiating that division towards constructive relationships rather than towards broken relationships.
Thank you so much. Thank you.